We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrived. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
One more time.
It is time now. It is time now that we thrived. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning,
one more time. It is time.
To lead in
it is time. Go.
It is time now. It is time now that we thrived. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Oh, man. Good morning. Welcome to the Boulder Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship on this beautiful December morning. What a time to be alive. I'm Eric Williams. My pronouns are he, him. I'm joined today by Pastor AJ Blackwood, the community minister of The Mountaintop, a UU BIPOC community that is Black, Indigenous, and people of color, funded by UUs for Racial Justice, which our fellowship helps support. Pastor AJ identifies as a queer cis male of Latino and indigenous descent. That is, he is a Dene descent, I believe. Today's sublime music is provided by Tad Coriath and our music director with Shelley Bernard, Debbie Larson, Laura Patterson, Clara Kelly, and guest vocalist Paul Ermish. Today's indispensable tech team is Deborah Mensch, Paula Zimmerman, and Kathy Partridge. As I say the welcome words this morning, I invite you to reflect upon how they embody our core principles of love, reason, compassion, and justice. You are all welcome here today. In all the beauty of languages, cultures, skin tones, shapes and sizes, gifts and challenges that come together in your uniqueness, you are welcome here. In all the ways you experience and express gender, in the beauty that is who you love and how you love, you are welcome here. In all the ways you make your living and all the places you are from, with all the traditions that inform your spiritual life, you are welcome here. No matter how long you are away, nor how soon you will return, whether your body and soul need someone to lean on, or if you arrive with the capacity to support others, you are welcome here. You are invited to join us with a curious mind, a loving heart, and a willing spirit. We welcome you today. We also acknowledge that the land surrounding us is the stolen territory of the Arapaho people, and that many native peoples lived freely on this land for millennia before the arrival of white settlers. If you're new here, we're glad you found us, and we hope that you can sense the warmth and love of this congregation, whether you're with us personally or virtually. Either way, please come back a few times to get to know us better. We also provide opportunities during the week for social connection and spiritual growth. Those on Zoom can check out the links in the chat to help you get connected. And new folks here this morning can stop by the welcome table in our foyer for more information. There's also a QR code in the back of the hymnal. And stick around for our morning coffee too. Everyone on Zoom is welcome to stay for casual conversation following the service. We're so high-tech, we have a digital order of service for you today. You can use your phone. This technology is so cool. You can use your phone to scan the QR code on our screens now, or click on the link in the Zoom chat. If you're joining us on Zoom, please feel free to greet each other in the Zoom chat. And those of you in the sanctuary, please take one delicious minute to greet your neighbors.
If you have a chalice at home, you can light it with me as Eric lights our chalice here in the fellowship. So we all know where you are. Also, if you're at home, please write in the chat, chalice lit in the name of your city or your town or where you're from. And please say these words along with me as we light our chalice. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, the light of truth, and the energy of action. And now I'll invite our bowl to sing, inviting us into a deeper presence and moment in this beloved community. And as we sit in this next moment of non-human singing, may we just join in a moment of reflection. That's what happens when you don't use your dominant hand for. Why did I do that? Welcome into this sacred time and gathering together on this sacred land. Welcome to you who are in person on the ancestral land of the Ute, Arapaho, and Cheyenne. And welcome to you who are near or far, anywhere on Turtle Island or anywhere in the world. We welcome you who come with privilege, with power, with wealth, and security. Come into this house of discomfort. This home that calls you to put your privilege, power, wealth, and security at risk for the sake of others, those who do not have those gifts. We welcome you who come seeking justice and who fear for your family, your friends, your neighbors in these times that are so uncertain. Come into this house of justice that will rise up against injustice and provide sanctuary for all those who approach its doors. We welcome you who come with a feeling of trepidation, a feeling of powerlessness, because your rights are being violated, voted upon, and you have a deep feeling within you that you have been abandoned by your families, your neighbors, your friends, and your government. Come into this home of grace and love, the spiritual home of a community that at times will make mistakes, but also strives to live with love at its center and aims to provide you with shelter and protection from those outside these spiritual walls who have broken and continue to break our covenants, our social contracts, and those who aim to do us harm. I invite you to come into this house of love. Welcome to this spiritual home which resides on land that we have no right to claim or own. I, as the infinite generations before me have done, I welcome you to a space of beauty and peace. I offer gratitude for this land, for those who have stewarded it, and for the opportunity to worship, learn, work, and be in community with this land and her peoples. Join us in this celebration of life, relationship, and connection with the spirit of Rev Thomas Starr King, a spirit that calls us to be challenged, to rise up against injustice, and open our doors, our hearts, and our minds to those who are suffering. Welcome to our celebration today.
And we'll continue our celebration by singing together. This is hymn number 105 in your gray hymnal. This is probably a new one to many of us. 105, From Age to Age. This is a beautiful hymn sung to the prophets. As we'll learn more today about Rev Thomas Starr King, one of the shining lights of Unitarian Universalism. This is a song about all those great people that have helped shape this faith. Please rise in body or in spirit.
This morning, we are holding a theme of celebration of the legacy and inspiring the future. So please join me in these next few minutes of prayer, meditation, reflection, as we reflect on the life and message of the Reverend Thomas Starr King, the man credited by Abraham Lincoln as saving California and the Union, not because he remained in his privilege, but instead because he risked it all and eventually gave his life for the cause of liberation and justice. As we settle in, I invite you to take a nice deep breath, roll your shoulders back, cross your legs, or don't. I hate when people tell me to put my feet down. But let's just take a moment to breathe and lean into who we are. And take a nice deep breath in together. Spirit of injustice, today I reflect upon you. I reflect upon the strength you are given by those in power who aim to do harm to the least of these among us. Spirit of injustice, today I renounce you and all who gave way to you. I name you before this community who centers itself in love and inclusion. I name you in this house with the wisdom of Louis Ettenmeyer when they say, "May nothing evil ever cross these doors. May evil never pry about these windows." Spirit of injustice, you have no place here in this house or among its people. In this house, we call for liberation of all. Now I call upon Spirit of liberation. Spirit of liberation, I ask you for forgiveness when we have failed to do all we can to bring liberation to the oppressed. Spirit of liberation, I ask that today you give us strength of heart, will, and spirit to deeply engage the ministry of liberation. The ministry that comforts and uplifts those who are targets of oppression. May we seek liberation in all of our actions, regardless of the risk, celebrating the challenge, and eventually bending the moral arc of the universe towards justice. In my tradition, speaking of our intentions out loud brings strength to those intentions. Beloved members of our community, I invite you to speak out loud peace and love into the world by speaking of those who are living with fear and trepidation, specifically our trans, queer, BIPOC, immigrant siblings during these unsettling times, these terrifying times, or anyone else you are holding as your heart as we send positive energy into the world. And now I invite us into this time of community connection and sharing as we share our joys and concerns and those who we are loving at this time.
So Pastor AJ, Please add a stone for the homeless, the lost, the forgotten souls who live invisibly among us. May we see them. May we remember them this Christmas season and every season. And please add one last stone for any joys and concerns that remain in the silent sanctuary of our hearts, knowing that even in our silence, we are bound together in the web of life. My friends, how I love those words. Even in the silent sanctuary of our hearts, we are bound together in the web of life. It rings so true for me. We are bound together on this blue boat home. No matter our race, gender, age, politics, or social status, regardless of species, subgenus, or genus, every living thing on this planet is bound together, interconnected, interdependent. Whether we see it or not, whether we believe it or not, we are bound together. And so that your joy is our joy. Concerts and beautiful weather, skiing. And your concerns are our concerns. A husband in crisis, friend's death in Ukraine, Supreme Court decisions. These are our concerns too. So in the sharing, may we feel heard. May we feel held. And may we be supported by this compassionate community in our joys and in our heartaches. May we know that we are not alone.
Good morning. Thank you for the privilege of being here this morning. My name is Paul Ermish. For a long time, I was with Prairie UU and down in Parker. And okay, that's all right. So you might ask, how do you write a song about Thomas Starr King? Well, let me first say that Pastor AJ a couple of months ago asked me to do so. We had been experimenting with he had been experimenting with ChatGPT to generate lyrics, and we actually wrote another song previously about just a welcome song. I didn't particularly like how that one worked, so I asked. This time I did a little bit of research, and the prompt when you work with an AI tool, there's a prompt, and the prompt was a poem about Thomas Starr King in dactylic hexameter. So I found that worked best for the words. So I present to you Star of Freedom. The words are by Claude AI and myself, but all the music is original. So. Over the mountains and crossing the prairies, his spirit was burning, bringing the message of reason divine to the shores of the sunset. Unitarian truth in his heart was like a compass guiding. God dwells in nature and mankind alike, rang his voice through the valleys. Starr King of Boston, now westward advancing with purpose, teaching that faith needs the light of our minds to discover its meanings. Mountains and forests became his cathedral, his pulpit of wonder, while through the redwoods eternal his words found their glorious echoes. Thomas Starr King, your legacy lives in these mountains. Sierra, your beloved, still whispers the truths you defended. How we are one with the stars and the stones and the souls of each other, and in a circle of wisdom that time cannot break or diminish. Small was his frame, but his voice carried strength of conviction, showing how science and spirit unite in a dance of creation. Look to the peaks, he would say, for they teach us of heaven's high purpose. See in each soul the infinite dwells in the finite before us. Thomas Starr King, your literature in these mountains. Sierra, your beloved, still whispers the truths you defended. How we are one with the stars and the stones and the souls of each other, preaching of nature's higher gospel in valleys and forests primeval, teaching that walls between faiths are but shadows that fade in God's sunshine. Now when we gather to worship, his spirit still guides our communion. Thomas Starr King, Thomas Starr King. Thank you.
Excuse me, I'm Chris Yoshinaga Itano. My pronouns are she, hers. Each week we remind ourselves of the abundance of our lives and this community by giving half of our plate away to those organizations that share our values. Today the half plate is for the Mountaintop. Our congregation was one of the primary founders of the Mountaintop at a time when our country was becoming increasingly unsafe for people of color, as it sadly still is. The Mountaintop provides a safe UU space for UUs who identify as people of color or BIPOC identified. The vast majority have multiple identities, including queer identified and disabilities identified. Initially, this was a companion community to the UU Front Range congregations, but UUs joined us from across the United States, as well as from other countries, including Mexico, Costa Rica, Canada, and the UK, a number of US citizens who relocated because of fear of safety. You can text your donation at the number on the screen, or if you are at the fellowship today, place a donation in the offering plate as it passes. Please give generously, as you so often do.
for the work of the fellowship, bringing love, reason, compassion, and justice into this world. And for the mountaintop, we dedicate these offerings.
Pastor AJ has suggested some readings from Starr King. I should have a long black frock on. So these are words from Rev Thomas Starr King, collected by Robert Monzingo in his book, Thomas Starr King, Eminent Californian, Civil War Statesman, Unitarian Minister. Let's remember, these speeches are 160 years old, when a Unitarian was a liberal Christian and only white men could vote. If he were speaking today, we can be sure his language would be more inclusive. The first is from the Organization of Liberty on the Western Continent, given August 2nd, 1860, to free black persons. Starr King said, "If there is a race within our borders for which there is no organization of liberty, but upon whom the architecture of the Saxton institution frowns like the sullen masonry of forts and jails, to whom their security is the security of the dungeon, and for whom the strength of law is the strength of bolts and chains, how plain is the call upon those of our people whose hands can help them to consider their case in the light and by the methods of a practical wisdom." He continues, "Wherever we find many races brought together, there God has his greatest work to do. There is room for the noblest work of Christianity. The Almighty has a great mission for this nation. Here the church is to proclaim the equality of the races. Wherever the oppressed are congregated, there Christ is present, and not on the side of power. It is always easier for a person to look with reverence to those who are above, but it is greater to revere the man who is below." And from Patriotism, Its Duties and Privileges, given September 22nd, 1862, to white citizens, Starr King said, "Patriotism is the love of country. It is a privilege that we are capable of such a sentiment. Self-love is the freezing point in the temperature of the world. A rich man, not an open secessionist, who gives nothing stands at zero. As his heart is kindled and ennobled, it pours out feelings and interest, first upon family and kindred, then upon country, then upon humanity." And he's getting warmer, right? "If all that the past and the present reveals could be caught in one vast spectral, ghostly display, the wealth in store, the power, the privilege, the freedom, the learning, the expansive and varied and mighty unity in fellowship, almost fulfilling the poet's dream of the Parliament of Man and the Federation of the world, you would exclaim with exhilaration, 'I too am an American.'" He continues, "We have been placed on our domain for the sake of a hope. What we have done and what has been done for us is only a preparation, the outline sketching of a picture to be filled with color and life in the next 3 centuries. Shall the sketch be blurred and the canvas be torn in two? That is what we are to decide in these bitter and bloody days."
I would like to start with a great big thank you to Reverend Barbara and Tad and Deborah and Eric and your entire worship team for inviting me to be with you today. Hopefully, after this message, they will someday invite me back. Thomas Starr King was born in New York City on December 17th, 1824. That's a week from next Tuesday, 200 years ago. At the age of 20, he took over his father's former pulpit at Charleston Universalist Church in Charleston, Massachusetts, where he served for a few years until 1849. And then he took over the failing Hollis Street Church in Boston until 1860, when he accepted a call from the First Unitarian Church of San Francisco in California at the age of 35. 1860, the age of 35. Any significance about the year 1860 in this country? He died at the age of 39. Basically, he worked himself to death, is what his family and friends said. But the ultimate diagnosis was a combination of diphtheria, which a 39-year-old shouldn't get, and pneumonia. He was one of the ministers of the time that held dual ordination. He was first a Universalist and also a Unitarian. Almost immediately after arriving in California, he began advocating for indigenous peoples of the Yosemite area, as well as for the protection of the land of Yosemite, and fought against gold mining. He inspired, later years to come, John Muir to photograph Yosemite, which then later led to Yosemite becoming a California state park and then a national park. With the beginning of the Civil War quickly approaching in 1860, he became an outspoken person leading the charge of the anti-slavery movement. By the middle of 1860, California was facing pressure to split into two states. Northern California free, Southern California slave. Colorado was pledged to follow California. Southern California, in reciprocation, pledged to become part of the Colorado Territory. Starr King took this on as a part of his call and began circuit riding, preaching, and speaking across the state, advocating for the entire state to remain one, united, and free. He raised $1.2 million of the total $4.8 million that was nationally collected for the Sanitation Commission and to aid Union soldiers, later to become the Red Cross. He in California raised 25% of the total of the founding of the Red Cross. He is credited by with Lincoln's state win, and his parishioner, Leland Stanford, we've heard that name, winning the governorship in 1861. Lincoln later said of him that King saved California for the Union, and local officials commonly said after his death, he saved the soul of California. And I will say by extension, keeping California free and united kept Colorado free and united. Thomas Starr King is mostly remembered for saying this quote. Have you ever heard it? Universalists believe that God is too good to damn them, while Unitarians feel themselves too good to be damned. Have you heard that before? So that's probably his most famous quote, but it is definitely not all he had to say. Starr King had no intention of maintaining the separation of church and state, and neither do I, so I may not be welcome back into this pulpit someday. But he was called to preach on the politics and the social realities of the day from the pulpit. And he was called to speak to the soul and the spirit of the people in the town square. Do you get that? Social justice was to be spoken in the pulpit, and the soul was to be spoken out in the world of Unitarian and Universalism. So this all leads me to the selection of readings that I gave to you today, and Eric so greatly read. So the first selection of readings was from a speech that he gave, a white Unitarian Universalist minister gave to black Americans in 1860, months before Lincoln was elected. White people weren't allowed to speak to black people in this way. He was rabble-rousing them. He was telling them to stand up. King says to them, there is no race within our borders for which there is no organization. If there is race within our borders for which there is no organization of liberty, he's telling black people, there's nothing here for you. I hear you. I see you. Your security as black people is in the dungeon. It is tied by chains. It is in the forts and in the jails. And he says that that is led by our Saxton, our white institutions. And he calls upon them to say, it is not your responsibility to change these spaces. It is the responsibility of the white institutions, the Saxon institutions, to change the world. It is the responsibility of the church to change the world. He uses God and Christ and Christianity, but I will say the words are the same: good, the divine, and Unitarian Universalism. And he ultimately says to these poor, many of them newly freed peoples, the great mission of the church is to be not on the easy side, but on your side, the side of the oppressed. That is where the races will meet, and where the races meet, God will be present. Good will be present. It's easy to revere the wealthy. Some of us saw that about a month ago. And hard to revere the man below. In the second iterations of readings that I chose, he talks to now white people about patriotism. And he says, patriotism is a love of country. It is a privilege. Have you ever thought of patriotism being a privilege? Right now, as a queer BIPOC person, patriotism feels like something that is a burden. It's no privilege. So I ask you, when he says that self-love, again, something we may have saw a month ago, is the freezing point temperature in the world. And he says that a rich man, and he makes it very clear, not a secessionist, but a rich man who gives nothing stands at zero. And he tells us that our hearts have to be filled with a common humanity. Our hearts and our passions have to be filled with something that goes well beyond who we are in our families, in our clans, in our small spaces. And he says, and he quotes Longfellow when he talks about the Parliament of Man and the Federation of the World. And he says, there's power and there's privilege and there's freedom and there's learning, but until we get to that fellowship and that Parliament of the world, it's then that you would say, I too am an American. So as a BIPOC person, as a queer person, I've had conversations with friends. I had a conversation with a specific friend who said to me, if Kamala wins, and I told you I'm going to get political. If Kamala wins, I will, for the first time in my life, put an American flag on my house. Family of immigrants. Kamala didn't win. That privilege was taken away. So why are we here? He tells us that we are here to create hope. That what we have done and what has been prepared for us is an outline sketching of a picture that we are required to fill with color that will last not for the next generation, but for the next 3 centuries. He had a dream that told us that the work that we do is work that we have to envision will last for 3 centuries. And he says, if we can't do that work, should we blur the sketch? Should we just tear the canvas in two? And he says, should we decide what we would do in these bitter and in 1862 bloody days? So, I'm going to summarize this for you very quickly. What are you willing to do? Who are you as a congregation? Who are you as an individual? Because this is a time of reflection. We have about 30 days to reflect. And then we got to figure out what we're doing. And I'm not asking about, platitudes. We are called to act. That action may be very simply writing a letter, because that's your ability. That's where you are. That action may be protesting at the Capitol, because that's your actuality, that's your ability, that's where you are. That may be making a phone call. That may be housing somebody in your home. Asking yourself, where will that person who's seeking reproductive care going to stay when they flee their home state and come to Colorado? Where will that undocumented person stay? Who will feed them when they flee another state? Or when they flee their home in Pueblo or in Greeley or in Fort Collins? Or maybe they're here in Lafayette and need to find a new place somewhere else in the county. Where will you be when somebody needs this assistance? And now is the time to reflect. Because you know what? And I don't mean any disrespect. I don't mean any disrespect to our trans and queer siblings. But that's the easiest. If a trans person comes out and needs help in this area, that's the easiest for us. And as a friend of mine told me, just as long as you aren't a hole to the trans people, you can do this. And you know what? I hope that we all step up. And I also hope that that's not where we stop. Somebody who's seeking reproductive rights from another state, maybe a little bit easy, maybe not quite as easy, unless they're from Texas. And you have family in Texas. And if you help that person coming to seek an abortion in the state of Colorado, and you want to go see your family in Texas, you have a realization that you may be imprisoned or fined $5,000. What about for the undocumented? It's a felony. It is a felony to aid and abet somebody who's undocumented. What are you willing to do? Now, for this house, there's sanctuary laws, but under a dictatorship, there's no guarantee that they won't come in. What are you willing to do as a community and as a congregation? What are you willing to do in your own personal life? Many of you are at an age, I'm going to be really honest with you. A 20-something-year-old giving someone sanctuary has everything to lose. A 70-year-old who gives somebody sanctuary is going to be received a lot different by this government. What are you willing to do? Risk your pension, risk your home, risk your health care. What are you willing to do for people who may risk their lives? Are you frozen? Or are you looking towards the Parliament of Humanity? A place where we can all call ourselves proud and patriotic Unitarians, proud and patriotic Universalists, proud and patriotic Americans. I would hope that you consider that over the next 30 days. I am not trying to say that there is one size fits all for any of you, but every single one of you can do something. You have 30 days to figure it out. I don't know if you're going to ask me back. I hope you will. But thank you. One last thing that I will say, because I want to make sure that we're clear. I was going to say this at the beginning, and I forgot. My mother told me a long time ago, we only bury sinners and saints. It's all we ever bury, right? People we love, people we hate, sinners and saints. Thomas Starr King, I presented to you as a saint. He had his sins. Let's never forget that we're all human.
Let's sing together one more time. This is number 170 in your gray hymnal. This is We Are a Gentle, Angry People by the beloved Holly Near. Let's just sing the whole thing, huh? All 6 verses. Let's sing it like we mean it. How about that? 170. Please rise in body or spirit. 4 more bars of intro.
Singing for
please join me as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this chalice not with the warmth of love, the light of truth, nor the energy of action. We carry these in our hearts until we are together. As we prepare to leave this sacred space, I'll invite you, if you are willing and able, to connect elbows, arms, hands, whatever you feel comfortable with. As we engage together with these words from Mark L. Bellatini. Mark was the first openly gay ordained minister in our UU association in the 1970s. Go in peace, live simply, gently, at home in yourselves. Remember the depth of your own compassion. Forget not your power in the days of your powerlessness. Speak the truth or speak not. Crave peace for all people in the world, beginning with yourselves. And go as you go with that dream of that peace alive in your heart. Amen. Ashe. Amin. Salam. Salam. Namaste. And blessed be.
One more song.
We have one more song we'd love to sing for you. It's a quick one. This is about taking your light, shining it out in the world. Be the light. By another prophet of our faith, I would say, Leah Morris. There is always a light when we are ready to see it. There is always a light when we are ready to be it. To see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night, to climb this hill. Together we will. There is always a light
in the dark.
when we are ready to see it. There is always a light
in the dark.
when we are ready to be it. To see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night, to climb this hill. Together we will. There is always